I want to thank you for taking some thoughtful time to view this webinar and for putting your attention towards optimizing your life so that you can get to your best adventure. Retirement can be an important reboot. It can also be a time when you encounter some uncomfortable insights and you're confronted with worries and concerns. Life has a way of getting ahead of us, and before you know it, your dreams and your hopes can get lost in the process. Before you know it, you can lose sight of that initial sense of adventure. In fact, are you thinking of your retired life as an adventure? Are you thinking of ways you can give back to your community, how you can live life to your fullest, and really experience a sense of satisfaction with your daily living? I am a life and creativity coach, and I work with retirees and those getting ready to retire who want to really get creative and give themselves wonderful experiences. You know you're in the right place if you're in that retirement range. Maybe you're newly retired. If you're seeking satisfaction for maybe a creative project or a work in progress. Maybe you've been trying for a while to have a successful retired life, and in some ways you're feeling stuck. Maybe you've even gotten to the point where you're frustrated and you're ready to try something new to get out of your comfort zone and discover what's possible. I created this webinar to give you an opportunity to see me and hear me so I could talk about some important principles that show up in my work with clients, and to let you know that I really believe that change is possible. And I also wanted to be able to share the different ways that you could engage with me. So let me introduce myself. My name is Daniel Mandel, and I'm a life and creativity coach. As I mentioned, I primarily work with retired folks or folks in that retirement range. I also am the host of the Creative Engagement podcast, where I interview artists and creatives and really explore what it's like to engage with your creativity. Within that same podcast, I've also created a new program that I'm calling Encouragement Sessions, where I walk people through different projects or works in progress, and I give them a structured way to be inspired and have hope. And finally, I'm also a singer-songwriter. You can listen to the Creative Engagement podcast or my music on all the popular streaming platforms where you listen to music and podcasts today. So let's dive in and talk about some important principles. One of the most important things that I do when I work with people is I help them really get clear on their values. So I might even just ask you right now, are you aware of, can you articulate your top 3 to 5 values? And once you are able to do that, then you have a way to kind of set a North Star and gauge your decision making against how well it's bringing you closer to your goals or pulling you farther away from them. It's also important to understand this concept of how thoughts and feelings and behaviors create patterns in our lives. And as we begin to scrutinize these and observe ourselves, we start to see these signatures of patterns that we might call sadness or being in conflict, or even wonderful periods of creative expression. Once we can start to see the options related to these patterns, we can start to choose which ones align with our values, with our North Star, and we can start to better appreciate which options create better thoughts, better feelings, and better behaviors that will improve our lives. As we start to understand and appreciate these patterns, we can also experience what I call getting out of your own way. So often we can create our own roadblocks or sabotage our experiences. And as we learn how to avoid those things, we can again optimize our experience towards reaching our successful goal. Another important thing to consider is the question, how do you express yourself? Do you express yourself primarily through speaking or writing, through movement? Maybe you express yourself with food. And it's also interesting to notice, when do you express yourself versus when do you hold back or suppress things that are in your mind, thoughts that are appearing? And noticing these things and enhancing your ability to express yourself gives you the ability to help regulate your emotions. So all of these things get tied together. All of these principles play with each other and dance with each other. Now, this is one of my favorites, which is learning about creativity through curiosity and experimentation. What I love is to challenge my clients and myself with the idea of what would be one experiment that you could create that would move the needle or in some way bring you one step closer to that goal, to that North Star that you're moving towards. And the beauty of framing different projects or pieces of projects as experiments is that it takes the sting out of making a mistake. In fact, it sets a mistake up as an opportunity to learn. And that's a wonderful way to create a growth mindset and ensure that you are not being held back or not getting in your own way. So even a trial, a mistake, an experiment can set you up to what can you learn from that so you can get one step closer, and taking step by step incremental movement towards your goals is a great way to achieve and even exceed your goals. So when you think of practice, you think of how are you spending your time? If I wanted to learn piano, the more I spend my time practicing, the better of a piano player I can be. And so think of, how do you spend your time today if you're not yet retired? How do you want to be structuring your time after you are retired? And as you're going to be learning new skills, new behaviors, what practices will support learning and set you up to do those experiments and be creative so that you're really experiencing then the adventure of retirement? So in summary, and forgive me, I'm going to refer to my notes here, we've talked about the importance of values, understanding thoughts, feelings, and behaviors as patterns, getting out of your own way. We talked about understanding expressing yourself versus suppressing yourself. And we talked about creative experiments so that you can make mistakes and learn and get messy and get creative. And finally, the discipline of practice and the importance of practice and where you put your attention and your time. So I'm going to leave you now with a scorecard, and this will give you a way to score your experience against these ideas in this webinar. So here's an example scorecard with 3 different spectrums and a place for you to put the X that represents your experience now. For example, The middle item goes from not quite sure how to make decisions all the way to really guided by top values. So you can put an X there that represents your experience now. I hope this has stimulated some good thoughts. And if you've found this information valuable, you can book a free consultation, an intake session with me. You can contact me at coach@danielrmandel.com or go to my website, danielrmandel.com/engage with me to find out more about all of my services. And once again, if you want to listen to the Creative Engagement podcast, or if you want to listen to some of my music, you can find me on all of the streaming services. Thank you. I'm Daniel Mandel.